Okay, so good afternoon, everybody, and thank you very much to Pauline and Boris for asking me to talk a little bit about sex bias in autism spectrum disorder. And I was glad to participate and to hear about Stephen Sanders' presentation, which was really great. So I will talk a bit about sex bias in autism spectrum disorder. And so I am a human geneticist, but I have to admit that the genetic data we have for now cannot explain by themselves why males are more affected by autism spectrum disorder than females. And this led us, together with Jean-Louis Mandel, to work a bit on the hormonal hypothesis of the sex bias in autism spectrum disorder. And we try to identify a target of androgens in neural stem cell to try to advance a bit on understanding the sex bias in neurodevelopmental disorders. So many of the neurodevelopmental disorders present a sex bias, so usually balanced to males. So males are more affected than females. And this can be mild. So it's the case for intellectual disability, where one female is considered to be affected for 1.4 males. While it can be sometimes higher, and it's the case for autism spectrum disorder when the female to male ratio is 1 to 4, but this ratio is changing and evolving depending of the epidemiologic studies that have been done, and also depending of the other clinical manifestation associated with autism spectrum disorder. So when autism spectrum disorder is present with intellectual disability, the ratio is really largely decreased and really more close to the ratio for intellectual disability, so 1 for 2 males, we will say. But when autism is present without intellectual disability, and especially high functioning autism, the ratio increased sometimes to one female for 6 males affected. So, of course, the first hypothesis we can establish for such this sex bias would be like the involvement of pathogenic mutations located on the X chromosome. And that's true that for intellectual disability and also autism, a lot of genes have been identified on the X chromosome that are causing intellectual disability or autism when they are mutated. For now, more than 130 genes have been identified. And some of these genes are also, we will say, very, I don't remember how Stephen Sanders calls them, but really not specific for autism because they also lead to intellectual disability, but with really autism at one of the first clinical manifestations present in these genes. So autism predominant, we can call them. Sorry, I didn't remember the name. And one such example is for instance, neuroligin 3, which encodes an adhesion protein involved in synaptic formation and functions. And 20 years ago, a missense variant were identified in this gene. So this gene is located on the X chromosome in 2 brothers with autism spectrum disorder by the team of Thomas Bourgeron. And we identified recently additional patients with other missense variant in these genes. And we were able to show that these different missense variants lead to an abnormal localization of the neuroligin 3. So the neuroligin 3 normally goes to the membrane. And when the mutations are present, the protein is retained in the endoplasmic reticulum and it will activate some UPR stress. But today, we have like at least 7 individuals that are reported with pathogenic mutation in neuroligin 3 located on the X chromosome, so only males. There are few more in ClinVar, but functional study didn't really confirm their involvement. So maybe we will have 10 to 15 individuals described with a pathogenic variant in neuroligin 3. But this remains a rare form of ASD with intellectual disability. And for sure, it cannot explain by itself the large excess of males we can find affected with autism spectrum disorders. So pathogenic mutation on the X chromosome are not sufficient to explain this sex bias. And it was demonstrated for intellectual disability kind of long time ago by Jean-Louis Mandel and Jamel Shelley. And it's also the case for autism. And I wanted just to talk about quickly about two studies that have been led on the X chromosome for autism spectrum disorder. So one that I did during my postdoc in Canada. So I sequenced genes encoding synaptic protein in 142 individuals with autism. The large majority were males, and we were able to identify only 2 pathogenic mutations during this study, and the 2 pathogenic mutations were identified in females. The other study that really tried to work a bit on the identification of pathogenic mutation on the X chromosome for autism spectrum disorder was led by Christelle Depienne and Caroline Nava. And they sequenced the X exome in 12 families with at least 2 boys affected with autism spectrum disorder. But they were not able to identify pathogenic variants. They identified maybe a risk factor in the TMLHE gene, but not other pathogenic variant. Clearly pathogenic variant. So finally, we think that mutation on the X chromosome cannot explain this bias, and it's also demonstrated by when we analyze the large sequencing data we have now for different cohorts of neurodevelopmental disorder. So I just present here the data we have in Strasbourg when we perform high throughput sequencing with a large panel or exome sequencing in individuals with intellectual disability and or autism spectrum disorder. And what we could see, and it was kind of surprising at the beginning, is that finally, here are represented the pathogenic mutation we succeed to identify in males and females. And you can see in the top, the 6% is the pathogenic variant we identify in the X chromosome. So finally, we didn't identify any significant difference between the number of the proportion of pathogenic variants in the X chromosome between males and females. So clearly, these variants cannot really explain the sex bias. But we also identified an increase of pathogenic variants in females, so really significant increase, driven by mutation in autosomal dominant genes. And these results were found all around the world by the different colleagues working on large cohort of patients with neurodevelopmental disorder. For instance, we have the result for the deciphering developmental disorder in UK, where they also find an increase of pathogenic mutation in females compared to males. And this was also found when, besides the point mutation, people look at the copy number variant. So in a study of Sébastien Jacquemont, they show that the girl with autism spectrum disorder present more copy number variants than males, and these copy number variants were larger. So this really suggests that we have more pathogenic mutation in girls when we sequence girls with autism spectrum disorder. And there is no difference in the proportion of pathogenic variant on the X chromosome. And so we could represent things like this. Finally, girls, we have some categories, so a proportion of girls with autism spectrum disorders that are caused by a single genetic event, so either a point mutation or a copy number variant, and a proportion caused by more complex etiology, genetic, environmental, or more complex. And in boys, finally, we have the same number of boys that with autism for which the autism is caused by a single genetic event, but because when we take each single genetic form, finally we found the same number of girls and boys for most of the genes involved, but it's maybe the more complex case that are overrepresented compared to females, and so the males are more susceptible to develop autism spectrum disorder due to maybe more complex inheritance. So maybe the participation of different factors. So how we can see this difference in susceptibility between males and females? We can see it in 2 manners. So either the females finally are more protectors, so have protective factor, meaning that in this image they have like a larger umbrella to be protected. And this could be the involvement of a second X chromosome, or it could be also the implication of female-specific hormones. Or we can see also the thing in another way, and meaning that the males have risk factor, male-specific risk factor. So it could be represented like this. So it trains more on males than on females. And this could be, for instance, the involvement of the Y chromosome, but it could be also the participation of male-specific hormones, such as testosterone or androgens. And so why we decide to focus a little bit on this later hypothesis, which is the involvement of androgens, it's because there are like several lines of evidence of a role of androgens during brain development. You can see here the production of testosterone in a male. So of course, it will increase at the puberty until the adulthood, but you can see also two peaks. So it's not so clear now if it's two peaks or one maybe larger peaks, but with a high production of testosterone during the fetal life and just after birth. And we know also from animal models that androgens are really important in brain development and especially in the establishment of reproductive behavior. So testosterone and is the derivative DHT for dihydrotestosterone can bind the androgen receptor, which is located in the cytoplasm of cells, which will translocated into the nucleus and can participate to the regulation of gene expression. And there are now really several evidence implying prenatal testosterone and autism spectrum disorder, and especially there are like a different team, and one team located in UK, the team of Simon Baron-Cohen, who work a lot on this hypothesis since several years, and they were able to show that there is an association between the autistic trait in the general population and the exposition to testosterone during the in utero life of the individuals. They also find an increase of autistic traits in offspring of females with an abnormal elevated level of testosterone. And we have different line of evidence that really maybe make the hypothesis that it could exist a link between the prenatal exposure to testosterone and autism spectrum disorder or autistic traits. So what we can see here is really a schematic brain development with the different critical steps, so the proliferation of neural stem cell, their differentiation into neurons, and after the establishment of synapse and the network formation. And so we know that neurodevelopmental disorders occur when something wrong due to a genetic or environmental origin happen in one or several of these really critical steps. So the idea was to try to see if testosterone will regulate one or several of these critical states, and if if this regulation, so the exposition of testosterone of the male brain during development, could make it more sensitive to other genetic or environmental insults that could occur. And so the idea was to look for an overlap between, so to identify the gene and molecular process regulated by androgen during brain development, and to see if there is an overlap with the gene and cellular process really important for brain development, and those also know to be altered in autism spectrum disorders. And in order to do that, we decided to use neural stem cell, which has so human neural stem cell, which has a self-renewal, so they can proliferate. And if you remove some growth factors, they can also differentiate into cortical neurons. And we treat this cell with testosterone and its relative dihydrotestosterone, or DHT. And we were able to show, first, to validate the use of the model, that so in green, you have the androgen receptor, and when you treat with DHT, you will have a translocation of the androgen receptor into the nucleus, so suggesting that we could use this model because the androgen treatment was active on androgen receptor. And so the idea was to identify the genes regulated by androgen. So we performed for that RNA sequencing, but also to identify the target, the genomic target sequence for the androgen receptor. And we use a ChIP-seq approach to do that. So first, the transcriptomic analysis we did reveals that a little bit more than 200 genes were deregulated after a DHT treatment. And if you see here on the volcano plot, you can see that most of the genes were upregulated after the DHT treatment, but also you can see that the log2 fold change was kind of low. So finally, among the different genes regulated by androgen, we have only a small change in gene expression. Most of the genes were changed less than 2 times, so the difference in gene expression was less than 2. We perform enrichment analysis, and we find that these genes were enriched in gene encoding transmembrane protein, and most of them involved in cell adhesion or extracellular matrix organization, among others. So the change were, so we identify only few genes deregulated by androgens in our model, and the change were really subtle because it was not really high chain, but we were not expecting that androgen have such a high effect finally on neural stem cells. But we wanted to check if these changes were reproducible with different treatment, with different androgen treatments. So we use DHT at 2 concentration, testosterone, and another synthetic androgen, R1881. And we found that, for instance, for one of our target genes, NRCAM, we identified an increase, and the increase in gene expression is conserved with all the different androgen treatments. We wanted also to see if this regulation was conserved in a different genetic background, and for that we use neural stem cell derived from other iPS cells, males and females, and but all expressing the androgen receptor, and we were able to reproduce, to confirm the regulation of this gene, and also other target genes we identified in this study. So the idea, the question at the beginning was, among these, so we identified target androgen target genes in neural stem cell, but so among these targets, could we find genes that are known to be involved in autism spectrum disorder? So we compare our list of androgen target genes to the genes known to be involved in monogenic form of autism spectrum disorder, and we collect these genes from the SFARI database. So genes that are known and confirmed to be involved in syndromic and non-syndromic monogenic form of autism spectrum disorders. And we found a significant enrichment. We also found a significant enrichment between androgen target genes and the genes that are known to be associated to autism spectrum disorder. So genes for which variants were identified either during candidate gene study or GWAS study to be associated to autism spectrum disorder. And one of the genes, for instance, and we talk a bit in a few words more about it, is the NRCAM genes. And NRCAM genes so encode an adhesion protein present here, which is involved in axonal outgrowth and pathfinding. We know that this gene undergoes alternative splicing, and this alternative splicing could affect its function and is regulated by A2BP1 protein, which is found to be overexpressed in individuals with autism. We also know that some variants in this gene, in the intronic and promoter region, were described to be associated with autism. And there are 2 deletions present of this gene in the DECIFER database in individuals with autism spectrum disorder or neurodevelopmental disorders. What is also described in the literature, a knockout mice model for NRCAM, which show a decrease in learning for both male and female, and a decrease in sociability, but only for males. We also wanted to see if among our androgen target genes, we can find an enrichment in genes that are upregulated in individuals with autism. So for that, we took the PARISHAC studies that were published a few years ago. So it's transcriptomic studies that have been done on cortex, post-mortem cortex of people with autism spectrum disorder. And this time again, we could find a significant enrichment, and it's more significant that the other enrichment we identified. So really a strong overlap between the genes that are regulated by androgens and the genes known to be upregulated in individuals with autism. One of the genes, for instance, is FAM107A, And this gene was interesting because it's highly expressed in brain. And we know that this gene is regulated by glucocorticoid. And there is a cross talk between the pathway of androgen receptor and glucocorticoid receptor. So this gene encodes an actin binding protein, which play a role in cell growth, proliferation, and survival, and neurite outgrowth. It's overexpressed in cortex of individual with autism, but also a mouse model. So when it's overexpressed in a mouse model, it will have an effect on cognition and social behavior. So both NRCam and FAM107A was really were good candidates to study a little bit more. We wanted also to see if the regulation of these different genes act through the androgen receptor. And for that, we decided to inactivate this receptor in our neural stem cells. So you can see here, when you have just an androgen treatment, you have an increase of expression of NRCam. When we use scRNA, control scRNA, we still have this enrichment. But now when we use scRNA directed against the androgen receptor, which is quite efficient in our cell, you have a strong decrease of the androgen receptor expression at the protein level. This time, you don't have any increase of NRCam gene expression. We also confirm that using a neuroblastoma cells, which does not express at all the androgen receptor, and you can see here that you have no upregulation of the NRCam gene in this cell. So we add, transfect a plasmid with the androgen receptor coding sequence to overexpress the androgen receptor in this cell. And this time we were able to show that we recover an induction of NRCam gene expression using DHT. So we show by these two experiments that the regulation of the genes we identify acts through the androgen receptor. And that's why we wanted to identify the genomic target of the androgen receptor doing ChIP-seq. And we did that in a cancer cell LNCap, which is a control cell line which really the androgen receptor is really overexpressed to control the peak we identify. And we did also it in neuronal stem cell. We identified a large amount of sequence bound by the androgen receptor, and some of these sequences correspond to genes that we found to be regulated also in the transcriptomic study. And one example of that is the NRCam gene, still the same one. You can see here the peak we identified during ChIP-seq analysis. And so we identified different peaks in intron of NRCam. For instance, if we focus on this one, so the higher peak we identify, we can see a glucocorticoid response element. So we think that maybe the androgen receptor bind to this element. And this peak is fine with a different androgen treatment. So it means that the androgen receptor bind to DHT, to androgen, will maybe bind the NRCam genes on these different sites. And this binding could be involved in the regulation of gene expression of NRCam. You can see here also the SNPs that have been associated with autism spectrum disorders that are located here, so in purple. So we would have liked to have some SNP just located in this sequence bound by the androgen receptor, but unfortunately it was not the case. And you can see also in red the two patients from Deciphera database showing autism or neurodevelopmental disorder, showing deletion in one portion of these NRCam genes. So we wanted also, so because we found that androgen regulated, upregulated the expression of different genes involved in cell growth or cell survival, we wanted to check the global effect of androgen on neural stem cell proliferation. And you can see here, so if you focus, so sorry, it's a little bit a mess, this figure, but if you look at only the black line, you can see, so here the black line is a proliferation when we use control scRNA, and here you can see the proliferation when you add some androgen, DHT. So we found an increase, significant increase in proliferation of neural stem cell with a DHT treatment. So one of the genes we studied was the RGCC, because it's a gene encoding a protein known to regulate cell growth. And you can see here that when we inactivate this androgen target genes, we have really a total decrease of proliferation. But now we decided to inactivate the androgen receptor to see if we could still find the increase of proliferation after a DHT treatment. And it's the red line here. And you can see that when you inactivate the androgen receptor, you have no increase of cell proliferation after a DHT treatment, meaning that really it goes through the androgen receptor. We also inactivate the gene FAM107A with a specific scRNA, and it was the same. We were not able to find an increase of cell proliferation, so suggesting that the increase of proliferation due to DHT treatment pass via the androgen receptor and the upregulation of the FAM107A gene. We also demonstrate that the androgen play a role in a survival during differentiation, so not in normal conditions, but when we deprive the cell here for their differentiation, we place them in a nutrient-deprived medium, all the cell will die and we will obtain no neuron at the end. When we place the cell in this medium, but we add DHT, so androgen, it will lead to a survival of one part of the cells that will form, I don't know if you can see here, but we will have neurons that will finally occur in this condition. So it means that androgen improve cell survival during differentiation. We didn't find any effect on right outgrowth because we also find a upregulation of genes involved in regulation of right outgrowth. So we wanted to check that on NSC. And you can see here with retinoic acid, we have a large increase of the length, the total neurite length. So if we consider all the cell, and we don't have any effect with DHT, testosterone, or 81 molecules. So we have no global effect on the right outgrowth with androgen treatment. So in conclusion, we observe that genetics, or at least single genetic events identified, fail to explain by themselves the sex bias. And so that's why we work a bit on the androgen hypothesis, and we identify androgen target genes in human neural stem cells. We show that androgens regulate only a small number of genes with a low regulation amplitude. But these genes are robust and reproducible between different genetic backgrounds. We found that this regulation involves the androgen receptor and its binding to chromatin. And we found that, that among these target of androgens, we have an enrichment in genes associated with autism, mutated in patients with autism, or upregulated in patients with autism. And two examples of that are the NRCAM gene and the FAM107 gene. So finally, we have a list of genes, and it would be interesting maybe to compare these genes that are androgen target gene in a neural stem cell to genes that are regulated in different genetic conditions causing autism spectrum disorders. We can also use this list to look at other neurodevelopmental disorders with sex bias, for instance, Gilles de la Tourette syndrome, which presents a high excess of males affected, and maybe we could find also some gene enrichment. We show that androgen increase proliferation of neural stem cells, and they increase the survival during differentiation in deprived conditions. So finally, we found some overlap between the gene and cellular processes that are regulated by androgen, those that are important for brain development, because of course, proliferation of neural stem cells and survival during differentiation are really critical for proper brain development, and also with genes known to cause autism or upregulated or deregulated in patients with autism. The limitation is, of course, that it's only an in vitro model, so we don't know if this increase of proliferation or survival occur also in vivo in human. And we also observe, I didn't talk about it, but a different effect between the different androgen treatment. For instance, we identify an increase of the renin, the expression of the renin gene by testosterone, but not by the hydroxytestosterone. And we don't know why, because in our cell, we don't have the enzymes that metabolize testosterone into estrogen. And finally, if we cannot really explain the sex bias with genetics only or pathogenic mutation only, it doesn't mean that genetic is not involved in sex bias. And so we need now to consider, and I think with the study we show that we have overlap between genes that are mutated or associated with autism and androgen target genes. So we are ready to consider this interaction between hormones and genetics. And we have some genetic conditions, for instance, where the phenotypic expression is not the same between males and females. And maybe the androgen can contribute to this difference in expressivity of the genetic syndromes. So I would like to thank all the people involved in this study, and especially Jean-Louis Mandel, who brought me to this androgen project, because I didn't really want at the beginning working on that. And Angélique Cartier, the PhD student who worked with me and who did like a lot of the experiment I present, all people from EGBMC, from the sequencing platform, the high-throughput platform, and also our collaborator in ISTEM who provide us the neural stem cells, so Alexandra Benchois in particular. And thank you for your attention.